Alright, time for another DraftPhysics.com video presentation. So, I think we will start. Let's see if I can do this. Yeah, I can. With Newton's second law. And just read it again, just to verify the point that the people who claim that there is this 1/2 mv squared function, that things going twice as fast have 4 times the energy, and things going 3 times as fast have 9 times the energy, and things going 4 times as fast have 16 times the energy, are this is what they're arguing with, frankly, and they ought to just say, okay, Newton was an idiot and a moron. All the names you're going to call me, because I can't find it. I can't see the reasoning in it, the logic, that any of that crap is true. And Newton didn't see any of that crap as true. And he did tons and tons. He spent his whole life doing experiments, frankly. Just the absolute truth. Got like a ton of right answers, and you won't admit that, oh, he got this fundamental thing wrong. Why do you bother saying Newton's second law? Why do you say Newton's second law when you believe something completely different than Newton's second law? I mean, saying F equals ma and say that's Newton's formula, it's not. And certainly it's not when you're going to start squaring velocities. Accelerations, which are velocities. They're just velocities you're adding or subtracting. All right, so the alteration of motion is ever proportional to the motive force impressed. So basically just saying that you could have said equal, okay, instead of ever proportional. You could have just said equal, because that's what he's going to say, in further statements. And it's just that simple. The force pretty much equals, okay, the force when it's in the form of motion. It's the same thing. The motion of a mass is the same as the force that caused it. Okay, and is made in the direction of right line in which that force is impressed. So the direction matters, and the direction is conserved. That's pretty much what he's saying. All right, so he further states, if any force generates a motion, so anything, gravity or blowing or anything, any way you apply mass and motion, and the other force is the invisible ones like magnetism or gravity, although they're invisible, I'd argue they're just as real as wind. All right, a double force would generate double the motion. So if you push something with a certain force and it moved a certain velocity, if you apply twice the force, you'll get twice the velocity. So they don't believe that. Okay, so they think Newton got that completely wrong, and they're really not going to explain how it's possible that he got it wrong. How did he miss your truth? A triple force, triple the motion. So just making it clear, twice, 3 times the force, 3 times the motion. Not 9 times, and certainly not the opposite way. 9 times the force. 3 times the motion is not 9 times the force. Okay, whether that force be impressed altogether and at once, bing, really quick, or whether you apply it over time, doesn't matter, as long as no frictional force or some other thing is taking it away. He's basically saying, he doesn't say the words, but he's basically saying that, in a perfect environment, an ideal environment, the force is completely conserved. Okay, or gradually and successively. So he's just pointing out that you can apply a force slowly over a longer period of time, or you can apply a force over a very short period of time. And this motion being always directed the same way with the generating force. So that's a little bit, okay, and this motion being always directed the same way with the generating force. So he's saying that's a condition. So as long, if the force is in the same direction you're going already, okay, if the body moved before, it's added or subtracted from the former motion. So, basically just saying opposing things, 10-ton train going 5 miles an hour, 5-ton train going 10 miles an hour. the motion, if they don't go anywhere when they hit each other, it means they have the same amount of energy because one isn't pushing the other in a direction. Accordingly, as they directly conspire with or directly contrary to each other. So he's just saying it's all just plus and minus. If you add one force to something that has two forces, then you're going to have three forces. If you're in the opposite direction, then you just subtract the one force from the three forces. Or obliquely joined, they are, when they are oblique, so as to produce new motion compound of the determination of both. So he's just saying if your forces are at angles rather than directly in line, right line, that it's still just the same idea. You just add the two vectors, or subtract the two vectors, as the case may be. So that's his real second law. I don't know why physics uses Newton as a groundwork when this formula is not. He's clearly pointing out it's all momentum. There is no kinetic energy theory or equation or mechanism. There's nothing indicating that force is anything different than momentum. Momentum and force are the same thing. I mean, obviously he's saying here, if you're going to affect something, you're going to affect its velocity. You can't change its mass by hitting it. So obviously he's just saying, okay, mass is irrelevant, but it's the same effect. If you could change its mass, then you'll change its momentum, and the force will be conserved. And it doesn't matter whether it's in the motion of a big thing or it's in the motion of a little thing. It's all just mass moving. Newton also believed in an absolute three-dimensional universe. So, they don't even talk about that at all either. So his vision is nothing like the vision they're shoving in his mouth. So he's pretty much universally known as one of the greatest scientists of all human history. And yet they are completely slandering and degrading his content by saying he said things he didn't say, by putting words in his mouth that he didn't believe. So every time you say I'm some kind of idiot because I don't see the nonsense you're talking about, and I don't see it in any credible experiment, all right, you're never going to bother doing the real experiments, right? You're never going to show me the free energy you can make by giving something 3 times the velocity and creating 9 times the energy. You're not going to show me the NASA diagrams where they use the kinetic energy theory to land on the moon, because they didn't. So all of this bullshit that's all it is. It's just bullshit. All right. So pause. Go to the next thing. In other news, I am going to start putting some of these 50s, 60s videos, science videos, on my website, just to keep them as a reservoir, because they do seem to pop in and pop out on YouTube. And so I'll, when I get a few of them up, I'll create a page for that and such. So the Stern Gerlach one I do have up, and it's titled something like Stern-Gerlach .html. So if you want to go rush to find it, but anyway, it is on the website, and I will be putting others on the website, so they are undisturbed by commercial nonsense, so the science isn't polluted by that kind of nonsense. I mean, all of this should be something. I mean, most of this stuff was financed by the government. It really shouldn't be owned by somebody else. It really should all be public domain by now. It just is again, it just makes science look ridiculous. Now, what I have noticed in going through all these videos from the 50s and 60s is none of them deal with kinetic energy. None. Zero. So lots of interesting experiments, Stern-Gerlach, measuring the weight of an electron, lots of fringe pattern videos, lots of videos. Absolute zero on the subject of kinetic energy and the fact that you can create and destroy momentum by simply, using pendulums. None of that demonstrated. So, you know, just more evidence that if this was a real thing, don't you think they would have done these experiments and shown them, because it's kind of miraculous? I mean, it is kind of, you know, making free momentum is not a little thing. It's kind of a, hey, that's kind of interesting, kind of a big deal. You'd think they'd have a video explaining how you can do that. Yeah. All right. All right, so I am going to read some comments by people, and so I just want to, you know, talk about what they're doing. So, you know, and one of the comments is going to be by this Dispar creature. He's put up a new video, colliding one mass and two mass into rubber band. Okay, so I don't even know what you know, what the theory is going to be here, but yes, it ought to be, you know, there'll be certainly something to complain about, no doubt. And for what purpose? Hooke's law doesn't necessarily apply to rubber bands. I mean, I've never heard it. I've never seen it demonstrated that rubber bands are like springs. That rubber bands might be more like magnets. They, you know, they get stronger as you get closer. They get stronger as you compress them more, expand them more. So I don't even know what he thinks he's going to prove. What he should be doing is launching the pendulum maybe with a rubber band and just showing that a half mass will go 4 times as higher. You know, that's a simple experiment. But anyway, not really the point, because the point is he still left this video up. So let's click on it. So he calls it a simple kinetic energy experiment. Now, over a week ago now, 7 days ago, I explained that the video has a huge giant flaw in it. Okay, and I gave them a few days to find the flaw, and they didn't find it. All right. And then I even pointed out in my comment that let's see how long it takes them to find it, if they can, and then let's see how long it takes them to acknowledge it. Well, both of those are apparently forever. So he's got a video up that's a complete deception. I mean, it's catastrophically stupid. All right, and and yet he's left it up. He hasn't annotated this title to say, oh, flawed process. Nonsense results. I mean, they mean nothing. And let's see if he's
a 2.5
put any
centimeters.
comments acknowledging that. Let's see if there's any comments. No, same comments that were there before. No new comments. No acknowledgement of it being an absolute shit deception. All right, I explained the deception. It has to do with pendulum swinging this far and pendulum swinging this far. You can't put an object here and expect this to have the same energy when it only has a maximum arc that's much shorter than the other thing's maximum arc. I mean, I pointed it out. Huge flaw in the experiment. Gigantic, stupid, moronic experiment. And he's left it up, hasn't said a damn thing about it, hasn't admitted his bad logic. And this is a person I'm supposed to believe isn't trying to deceive. If this isn't trying to deceive, what else could it possibly be? I mean, it's quacking like deception. It's got feathers like deception. You know, it's got liquid poop like deception. I mean, it looks like deception to me. What else could it possibly be called by? I just want to fool people with fake experiments that are catastrophically flawed. What other conclusion could be drawn? You've had a whole week to discover it and fix it, and you haven't bothered. All right. So, I mean, just proving. Of course this is about your dishonesty. Of course this is about how you can't do an honest experiment because you're motivated by one objective. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. That's all that's in your head, is to prove Gary wrong. You don't have anything else that's motivating you, you lousy, cruddy, scummy piece of crap. And to pretend you're doing science when you leave a piece of absolute shit up. I mean, this is a shit video, shit concept, illogical, stupid, dumb, okay, incredibly unscientific, and you've just left it there. Proving you're about the deception. You don't give a shit about the truth. All right. On to. All right. So now this other dishonest moron who's claiming he's doing scientific experiments, all of them crap, flawed, shitty, very few details, and then, you know, this one. It's It's been up for 3 weeks now. It says 2 weeks, but it's 3 weeks now. All right, complete fraud of a video, okay? Nothing about it is true and honest because he did a simple measurement wrong. He couldn't he couldn't properly measure 4 times the height. And so he did the experiment completely wrong. He got results where he's claiming, look, it's 1.4 again, right? We're 1.4. Now, obviously, those results are going to dramatically change when he does the experiment from the right distance. All right, so no acknowledgement beyond the fact that, his own commenters pointed it out to him 2 weeks ago. Whatever the imperfections there may be in establishing the heights, so that's Stephen Brozo, right? So we're not talking about an imperfection. We're talking about a gigantic error, a huge amount of distance. I mean, twice, it's twice the height that it should be. It's a huge difference, a huge mistake. And, this other guy said, you're supposed to be measuring the height difference, meaning the center of the bob, blah, blah, blah. And so he's pointing out how, yes, you did it wrong. He, again, didn't care. He hasn't fixed any of it. There's been no further comments. Now, what he does say here repeatedly is, I'm going to do it over again. But he never did. I will devise a way of getting the measurements correct. The measurement is so simple. You don't have to devise anything. You could use exactly the same technique of stacking CD cases. You just have to recognize that it's only 2 cases, and so therefore you only go 8 high. You don't go 16 high. Yeah, that's all you have to figure out, moron. All right, meaning that the center of mass of the bob plus the rod is at 0 centimeters when at rest. Oh, okay, that's the other guy pointing it out. This is the one I was reading. You knowing my situation more than most, I have little time to devote to these things. So again, it's just, he's going to make excuses. I will devise a way of getting the measurements correct and really appreciate your input and ideas on how to go about it. I mean, it's not even complicated how to go about it, and he didn't do it. So he says he's going to devise a way to do it correctly. He didn't do it. All right. Okay. It has room for improvement. I don't deny that. So I look forward to honing this one down. He never honed it down, never redid it, because guess what? If he redid it, it's going to come out exactly as I predict. All right. My prediction will be correct. His prediction will be incorrect. So that's why it isn't being redone. So again, these people are pretending to be honest players, and they just couldn't care less. Let's see. I did think I was doing something wrong in regards to the height differences. So this is 3 weeks ago. He's left the video up. It's a piece of steaming shit. All right. Hasn't done anything to correct the deception that is the video. Just making excuses. When I get the opportunity, I'll redo it. And yes, some plot of the results might not go amiss, but I don't think my thousands of viewers, so he's making some joke about how nobody's watching the videos. Well, who cares? Who cares how many people are watching these videos? You're either a liar trying to defend the truth, or you're a propagandist trying to sell a lie. And I'm saying it's quite obvious which side you're on here. So he didn't do anything. Stephen has some problems understanding how the equations work. Yeah, that's hilarious. He's going to have he's going to ask Falwell to explain to Steve something about math. Hilarious. But anyway, no correction. So 3 weeks later, nothing. Okay, no statement here. Whoops, this was a shitty video. I'll redo it. Nothing to undo. And it was 21 minutes, 22 minutes of him just constantly ragging about how could it be any other way? See, your theory doesn't work.
Double maths.
Well, whatever.
We've now
his garbled speech just makes his videos all the more charming. Ugh. All right. Anyway, so what a liar. All right. So now Ian Gosling has done this turd of a video. Can you do that one? Working. Yeah, there it is. That one right there. Yeah, right there. Where again, sloppy as hell. And we're supposed to take it seriously. You can't even see, the board doesn't even look like it's level. So he's making measurements from a board that doesn't even look like it's been leveled. Which is, just so ridiculous. In the one case of the one mass, it's a solid object. In the case of the half mass, it's a bunch of washers, individual washers, 5 or 6 of them. I mean, it's ridiculously stupid. All right. And again, I'm obligated to explain the stupidity of it, and how poorly done it is, how poor the measurements are. What's the point of me doing that? I just did it for 2 videos a week ago now, right? This spar and the other guy, and they just keep the live video up. They don't care. They're not going to fix anything. And every time I point out how to improve these experiments, what happens? All of a sudden the subject changes. They start doing some other kind of video. So, this spar stopped doing the coupled oscillator as soon as I pointed out, well, maybe you need better pendulums. Maybe you need to tie them to something more solid than a bouncy stick. But we didn't see any correction. All right, so this is the one, this video was so moronic, where, he's claiming that I was talking about constant speeds when I'm in every video pointing out these are all experiments about things where objects are going faster or they're going slower, where they're losing energy or they're gaining energy. None of them are about anything to do with constant speed, anything moving a constant speed. I mean, just such a lie. So we will go to the comment section of that steaming pile of shit video. So I go find that. Alright, so here's the comment section. I guess I'll read some of this other stuff. I just want to get to a conversation with Mindless Marbles in it and Dispar. But anyway, thanks for the mention again. Seems like it really upset him, LOL. So he's laughing at the idea that I think it's just so dishonest of you people to leave videos up that have been proven to be bad theory. I mean, they're again, catastrophically flawed in terms of the impression they give. They're not anywhere close to accurate to the truth or fair to the truth. They're complete deceptions. You didn't do the experiment right. You didn't drop the thing from the height you claimed it was. All right? I mean, it's a fundamental error, and you don't care. And that's the part that everybody should be should make everybody a little nervous on this side. Okay, these are the people you're associating with, is people who don't care that the experiment is bullshit. All right, let's see. YouTube once again didn't appreciate my sense of humor. I directly answered your question in your title. I suggest a certain implement commonly used in American sports. I mean, you can't ever be on this subject. Who the fuck would bother with this moron? Yes, the idea of energy came after momentum. Yeah, so it wasn't to sit there and say that Galileo, Descartes, and Newton didn't have a concept of energy is just ridiculous. Okay, because the concept of momentum didn't provide all the answers. Well, where did it fail? So please explain to me where it failed. Okay, for example, now this is just too stupid, right? If your butler carries a 12K box, I mean, what kind of nonsense experiment is this? Okay, talking about walking upstairs with a weight, like somehow this is going to be some sort of, that's how you acquire velocity, is by stepping and then stopping and then stepping and then stopping and then stepping and stopping. I don't think so. All right, so now we'll get to the more rational. Well, it's hard to say. We'll get to whatever. So the bass and bass guy says, how anyone supports you is an insult to science. Yes, the video was just absolute crap. Didn't come close to addressing any of my arguments fairly. I mean, it was just perversion, slander, and nonsense, okay? He can't handle the simple diagrams, the simple points made in those videos. Can't be fair to the argument at all. So then Mindless Marbles makes a playlist of their crappy videos, so I might as well just show you that. Just a litany of all these shit videos, okay? And none of these physicist Michael videos demonstrate anything except, well, there must be a mistake in the video somewhere. So let's understand, physicist Michael is saying I can compress a spring the same amount, And if I put very light things on each side of the spring, I will start losing more and more momentum. So the lighter I go, the more momentum I lose. And the heavier I go, the more I gain. That's his experiment. Now, I don't know if Mindless Marbles has the balls to say that makes sense to him, but I'd like to hear it. You know, I like him to be honest enough to say, yes, he's defending that's what happens. That springs become less and less effective the lighter the object you put on them, and more effective the heavier the object is. Now, that might be true in some limited sense. You know, just because obviously the amount of energy the spring's using to itself, consumes some energy in moving. So the faster the metal in the spring moves, obviously the more momentum it's consuming itself by moving. But it's certainly not going to be enough of an effect to explain how you can double the amount of momentum you get out of the spring by merely doubling the amount of weight you put in front of the spring. So, you know, all of those videos are crap. All right. And the rest of these have debunked all of them. You know, just bullshit examples. These are complete lies about what the lever I did versus the lever they're doing. Completely different. The levers have already been explained. This stupid, I can't believe he put this fucking goddamn video with the fucking conveyor belt and saying that's the same thing as you know, proving that thin ice doesn't break when you put more weight on it. I mean, come on. I mean, this video is so bad. This stupid friction. You know, these are both conveyor. These are all the conveyor belt videos. These are retarded videos. Not even close to duplicating the experiment. You know, it's too stupid. So he's got all these really dumb videos up. This one didn't prove anything. Except I was right. He moves a one mass at 4 times the speed, and then claims that's twice this velocity. 4 times the velocity is twice the velocity. No, 4 times the velocity isn't twice the velocity, moron. I mean, just bullshit. So, this is the character of these people. They obviously don't have any character. So then the Woto guy, which is Farley. Okay. DraftScience keeps repeating Professor Lewin's statement. Yes, and do I have to really keep showing it? I mean, should I go back and show the blobs of clay on the carts? And then you can explain what the fuck they're doing there. Okay. That he is not doing any work while holding his briefcase. Yes, because he's demonstrating the work equation. That's exactly what the work equation says. If you don't have any motion, you don't have any work. That's their equation, you retard. If you're not net getting anywhere, you didn't do any net work. That's what your theory says. Okay, you don't consider oscillations work. Okay, what Draft doesn't acknowledge or understand is that most statements in physics talk about net effect. So again, you're just making shit up. I've played the whole video more than once. And certainly that piece, okay, I have played in previous videos. So you want me to play it again just to prove that what you're saying is a lie? There was nothing taken out of context. He's clearly just demonstrating the work equation says this. All right, he's not doing it in some sort of satirical way like, yo, isn't it funny? Yeah, it is kind of silly, right? No, he's saying it almost seriously. That there's no work being done because that's what your math says. All right, after canceling out opposing effects. Thus, when we say that a falling object is under F amount of gravity, it is implicitly understood that this is the net force. If you people were talking about net in any of these circumstances, this wouldn't be a problem. But that's not what you're doing. That's not what your whole squaring of velocity and acceleration means. You're not talking about the net acceleration, the net effect on the velocity. If you just would admit that, oh, well, all the acceleration is a net change in velocity. It's just a net change in velocity. It's not a squarable function. Okay, the gravity from the rest of the universe, so this is, I don't even know, sloppy Joe crap. What the fuck are you talking about? That doesn't have anything to do with Lewin's example. Similarly, when we hold up a briefcase, we are doing work to counter the work done by the earth. So again, you're saying that, but that's not what the fucking formula says. So just keep lying. But those two works cancel out. So that's what you're still saying. You're still saying that somehow Professor Lewin isn't doing any work. And of course he is when he's holding his briefcase. Professor Lewin is saying that he is not doing any net work. And my whole point is quite obviously is doing net work. The calories he's burning is proof that he's doing net work. So again, just lie. Okay. Blatant Daffy sock account. So again, they keep these lame excuses that because somebody else shows up and says, I don't think you've really addressed the points or some other thing, they have to call them all sock accounts. So, if you want to have a bet with me, okay, and what we'll do is we'll get your real name and address or your real identity. We'll see how many fake accounts you have on YouTube, and then you can find out how many. I'll give you permission, and we'll ask YouTube to profile both of us and see who's been more honest on the internet. I've never had a sock account ever, okay? I have like 10 accounts. And each one of them has a very specific title about a very specific subject. No deceptions ever. I have no sock accounts anywhere on the internet. You lying piece of scum. Okay, what triggers your brain to think this is a sock account? Well, what obviously? Desperation. They don't have anything else. They have to rely on desperate, clingy nonsense accusations because they can't make any real physics arguments. Okay. Let's see. You talk a lot, copy criticisms of Dav, repeat them back, blah, blah, to disprove him. Deso is also starved for interaction. So again, more nonsense. I'm starved for coherent, rational arguments for which, for me, to, as a gladiator, I want to fight something. I don't want to fight a half-dead possum. You people are just garbage. You're the only thing, it's tough for a gladiator if he has to fight some infected, pustule-covered, disgusting creature. It's even hard to kill. I'm not interested in fighting garbage and spit and vomit. Okay, I want some kind of like real fight. And you can't provide it because you're ballless, gutless, little turdy, wimpy, shitty pieces of crap as human beings. Lying scum. False accusation making lying scum. Okay. You people act like cult members without a doubt. And again, in the context where their physics has produced no evidence, I mean, really, nothing close to anything decisive. Okay, no example where the 5-ton train and the 10-ton train are in a tug of war kind of thing. Nothing to really show their energy. No ever anything close to showing 9 times the damage from 3 times the velocity, or 25 times the damage from 5 times the velocity. Nothing even close to showing any of this stuff. And yet they're so arrogant. There's a handful that don't care to admit that there should be videos already we could link to that are definitive evidence. Again, remember all these, there are a lot of these videos made in the 50s and 60s. I found some ones I hadn't seen before, which was really good. None of them are very good, frankly. Some of them are childish even. But at least it's something. But there's absolutely none, 0 so far, on the subject of kinetic energy. Instead, DraftScience points out the flaws that you people are too dishonest to admit, which result in the cycle. So again, exactly, if they would just admit that, yes, this isn't right, okay, there's obviously something wrong with this physics. It isn't Newton's physics. Newton didn't see it. So that's a big problem. We should be able to overcome that with substantial evidence and some sort of explanation why Newton could do all of those experiments with pendulums and he didn't see what you're seeing. He didn't get those results. The guy has spent years making arguments time after time again. Yes, 5-minute videos, easy. They won't dissect those 5-minute videos. People that can't stay on the subject or don't even debate what he draws or draws it wrong, right? They just keep cheating my arguments. You people have proved to me after so many videos that this is just a cult of people who either hates on yes, that's all it's about. They hate me, and so they're just fighting me. They're not even defending science. They don't give a shit about science. I'd almost argue these are God botherers or something. These are people who are just doing this because I am a threat to their whatever unicorn theory of reality. Or is doing it because they don't want to admit their science might not be the truth, and that's science. So anyway, yeah, it is pitiful that these people aren't honest enough to admit that they're the one with a credibility problem. That it is a problem that there's clay on Professor Lewin's card. And this Despar guy keeps talking about all these other videos on the internet. Every single one of those videos is produced to defend the theory. They're not produced to do the experiment. They're produced to educate kids in a classroom or something and show them how the theory works. They're demonstrations. They're not experiments. And so, again, it's not an unreasonable accusation to say that they've all perverted the experiment this way or that way to force a result. Again, can you explain how physicist Michael made the same spring produce 3,000 joules, and then a few moments later it only produces 2,000? Can you produce an explanation? Alright, I have already admitted that we need more experiments available online. Well, it's not that we need them. The argument is why don't they exist? If it's such a fact, why doesn't it exist as already proven fact? Why aren't people making videos going, look at this, you can make free momentum? Isn't that cool? Okay, I agree when you type in kinetic energy experiment on YouTube, you find almost nothing but extremely simple and basic tests with equipment you can find in every house. Well, I don't see that. I see a lot of people with their little standard buy it from the company carts that are designed to produce the experimental results. So, I see exactly the opposite. I see a bunch of engineered crap. Okay, I admit that. So you're not admitting anything. Are you admitting that this is an undeveloped argument, completely absent real, hard, credible, good evidence? Will you admit that fact, and that your amateur attempts, which I've just pointed out one of them to be catastrophically flawed, and you have no inhibition about leaving it up and not even annotating it, pointing out how you made a mistake? You misunderstood how the thing fucking works. And that's what you overtly did. The velocities at impact are not the velocities you measured, you lying scum. But to repeat over and over again that in 300 years, or that we haven't provided links, etc., that won't change the past and that won't change the scientific communities. Well, whatever a scientific community is doesn't make any difference here. The argument is do you have the integrity to say you haven't proven the case? Your evidence is far short of what should convict. You're saying you're going to convict Newton of being stupid, of a huge oversight. How could he possibly have missed this truth? All right. So go ahead and prove it with this nonsense. Fuck you. You're a fair cop. What I don't agree with is the fact that he has accused us of forcing. Well, I'm just saying, what else is there to say? You do the experiments your way, you show them. When they don't come out your way, you don't show them. Gosling proved that. Brozo's proved that over and over again. We know Brozo has done 500 experiments he never even showed us. So don't pretend you aren't playing the game, fucker. All right, the experiment came out our way. That's an absolute lie. So you can say it's a lie when it's obvious. And again, here you are making this comment. You've had 1 week to figure out what was wrong with the last video you produced, and you've done nothing. You haven't acknowledged the gigantic flaw. You haven't changed anything. You haven't said anything. You just left a live video up. And then you're saying we're not liars. What else is it but lying? You've left a completely flawed experiment up, not acknowledging that it has huge flaws, and you're just going to sit there and double down on it. I have been doing launching experiments with a launching device with rubber bands, spring compression, quick releases, the lever. Yeah, and all of this stuff, it had to be explained to you where the flaws are. And you couldn't have cared less. Somebody had to force you to do the experiments correctly or more correctly. All of them produced the ratio of 1 to 4. Right, and all of them were done shit. That's the truth of it. All right, you're taping this on that, you're taping that on this. They aren't equal, they aren't the same, all this bullshit. Every single one of the experiments is a piece of crap. Okay, the same for Michael. So here he's bring up Michael. So what do you mean the same for Michael? He's had a video up for 3 weeks that's a complete lie. He's pretending he put the thing at the right height when it's not the right height. It's a complete lie video. 3 weeks. And so how can you even bring up his name? Okay, and now I'm not even going to talk about the Brozo bullshit. I mean, so illogical, so stupid. Everyone's a filthy, dirty, mismeasured experiment. No matter what I tried, I couldn't make the half-mass object go twice as fast, only 0.148 at best. And again, you haven't tried to do the experiments honestly. So that's the whole point. You crashed a car into a fucking cracker. Didn't you do that? You crashed things into a fucking cracker. And you're going to tell me that you have some integrity? All right. We're talking about more than a dozen experiments. It must be a gigantic. There's no coincidence. You've left up of an experiment that's a pile of shit for a week. Is that a coincidence that you left it up even though it's complete garbage? It's not a coincidence. It's your motivation. It's exactly what you want to do, is deceive people. Well, this is how you deceive people, is to leave something up that's completely flawed. That's how you deceive people. And so what else is there to say? You're deliberately deceiving people. Clearly. This is no coincidence anymore. Yes, it's no coincidence anymore that all your experiments are flawed and that you don't really fix any of them completely. You always just change the subject when it starts not going your way. If our experiments are in fact bad and flawed experiments, then we should get random results. Why would we get random results? All you're doing is taking energy away. So the more energy you take away from the system, the more leaks there are in your experiments, the more to your advantage it is. I mean, that's the game. We're just really talking about every one of your fucking stupid experiments has a leak somewhere. And that's why you don't get the right results. It's because you're letting the energy leak somewhere. Right? The lever weighs something. You don't account for the weight of the lever. Your spring launcher has parts that weigh something. You don't account for the momentum that consumes. Every single one of your stupid fucking experiments has to do with the fact that you don't understand it's a little tricky to give something twice the velocity. Giving something twice the velocity is harder than giving something one velocity. And it's hard to give something 3 times the velocity because everything happens much quicker and everything has to happen with parts that aren't consuming more energy by moving faster. So the parts that are going to make the movement or force the movement have to actually not move faster. Because if they move faster, they're going to consume part of the energy. Because you don't understand that simple principle is why every one of your fucking experiments is a piece of shit. All right. And for the conservation of momentum, I've made around a dozen analysis videos. Yes, and analysis videos that say nothing. So this one I'll draw just for the fuck of it. I mean, because this is the one physicist Michael is supposed to be doing. All right, so that'll be good. Let me just mark where I was. Let's see. All right, yeah, here we go. Okay. So we're right there. All right. So I'll try to remember that. Because again, this one goes back to a bunch. This one has obvious conflicting evidence. All right, so I mean, I can bring up Mythbusters, I can bring up lots of stuff, but you know, all the car crash analyses I ever saw, they all deal with momentum. How is the momentum transferred in the collision? Every single one of them. So he's saying that this is a viable, real effect that actually happens. We have a one mass object. We're going to simply do a pendulum thing, so there's no threat of any loss of energy. We swing this in with 100 momentum. All right. And what happens is it hits this 3 mass and gives it 150 momentum. And then this 1 mass bounces back with 50. So now we have a system that has 200 momentum in it, right? Nobody would deny. So now we're going to have a system. We have the 3 and we have the 1. And now they're going to come into each other and collide. So we have a 3 mass that has 150 momentums. And we have another car that's has a 50 momentum. And they say this happens in physical reality, that these two things crash into each other and only 100 pops back out. So I had 200 in. I have a car going, say, a 3 mass car going 30 miles an hour, and I have a 1 mass car going 30 miles an hour. No, 10 miles an hour, I guess. Well, anyway, and then those two things are going to crash, and all I'm going to get out is half the energy. I'm going to lose half of the momentum is going to disappear from the crash. Now, we know that never happened anywhere in the history of mankind. The people would have observed this trick that you can have a car crash a certain way and magically it's not much of a crash at all. I mean, theoretically, by their theory, you could argue that, well, if you could possibly get this one to be 150 and this one to be 150, that they'd perfectly cancel out and there'd be no crash at all. I mean, it's just nonsense. You can't undo this 150 and this 50. They're in this system. They're going to crash into each other. There won't be any cancellations. You can't cancel head-on collisions. Nothing gets canceled in a head-on collision. Okay, you either bounce back, both objects either elastically retain their energy and bounce, or you crush, okay, 200 momentums worth of fenders and whatnot. So again, just a lie bullshit to sit there and say that, oh yeah, this is a perfectly reasonable argument they're making, that it fits with reality, not a problem, this isn't at all miraculous. Okay, that you can create momentum, destroy the momentum, create the momentum, destroy the momentum, create the momentum in any system, anywhere. So he says he's proven that. He's demonstrated beyond some sort of reasonable person's doubt that that actually does happen. Alright, and for conservation of momentum, I made around a dozen analysis video where it's proven that momentum can only be conserved when we treat the opposite direction as a negative value. So exact opposite of the truth. You cannot conserve momentum in this case. You have 150 and 150. 50. There's no conservation of momentum. You have to destroy the momentum. Somehow you magically make it disappear. It can't disappear. Physicist Michael Mindless Marvelous Theory have also debunked the idea. So where did they debunk the idea? I didn't see any of that. That we should always add up absolute values of momentum. So where did they debunk it? With what? I already pointed out physicist Michael's debunk has a huge flaw in it, wherein the same spring produces way different momentums, which frankly regular physics doesn't think is possible because it's a pressure, it's a weight. The spring contains a weight, all right, and it can't change how much weight it contains. I admit we don't have the evidence yet that proves twice the speed, 4 times the damage yet. Oh, I love that. I love that. Yet. You'll never have it because it's ludicrous on its face. All right, 4 times the speed, 16 times the damage, etc. But for the 1.4 thing, the conservation amendment, we have substantial amount of evidence. You don't have any evidence. I mean, it's just absolute nonsense. And again, we just go back to the bowling ball example. We can go back to wrecking ball examples. But I mean, the bowling ball example is a huge example. Your theory says all I got to do is take a lighter ball, throw it a little bit faster, and I can increase how much energy I'm going to impose on the pins. And yet not a single bowler can find that. Not a single bowler can find that advantage. I'll continue doing experiments, and believe me, it's actually difficult to make it come out twice as fast. Why should I believe you? You're telling me you tried to make it go twice as fast? I don't know. Did you actually do that? I've literally never managed to do it. So again, just baby talk. If that's the truth, then why is it so difficult to get the right results? Because, as I pointed out, look, we know the name joule, okay, is stuff has been named after him because he had sort of this exact problem. He wanted to know the absolute energy of things. He wanted to make a comparison between a steam engine and an electric domino, in terms of fuel in and actual horsepower out. And he found that this is a real problem, that there's no way to really test these things because all the experiments you do leak all over the place. There's all kinds of problems in trying to find some absolute way to take the energy of something light going very fast and the energy of something heavy going very slow and say, I can create an experiment that'll always give me the right answer. And so, yeah, he had to do a complex thing with, trying to create insulated water tanks. Okay. I mean, even, realistically, you got to say that system has to have all kinds of leaks in it. I mean, he couldn't create a perfect vacuum. He couldn't do lots of things that would have been necessary. But anyway, a very complex system he had to come up with, a very difficult to build system to try to do these absolute energy experiments. So yes, that is a problem. We can all acknowledge, we should be able to all acknowledge that yes, it is harder. Making things go fast is messier. That should be pointed out. It's always messier. Making things go slow is fairly easy. Making things go fast is messier. You're going to have more leakage. If you could just simply acknowledge that fact, then maybe you could do your experiments with a little more humility and credibility. But you can't. You won't acknowledge some obvious fact like that. So, fuck you. All right, please try these experiments out yourself and see what happens. So again, he's more advocacy for do the experiment sloppy. Crappy little matchbooks, cars, all this little bullshit. Let's not have it done scientifically well. Let's just keep doing it shitty. And the whole reason why science doesn't do it is because you people don't ask them to. You don't force them to. You don't tell physicist Michael, why don't you these experiments done well? Why haven't they ever taken the 5 mass going 10 velocity and crashed it into the 10 mass going 5 velocity and see what happens? Why haven't they ever done it? Why don't they make the tug of war? 10-ton train going 5, 5-ton train going 10, 5 mass going 10, 10 mass going 5. Put a string between them and have them fly off at those velocities and see what happens. Why haven't they ever done the experiment? I mean, if the 5-ton going 10 has twice the energy, it should drag the 10 right with it. Wouldn't that be evidence? Not a complex experiment. Why the fuck haven't they done it? Oh, again, you won't concede the answer. The answer is because it doesn't work. It doesn't come out your way. You don't land on the moon with kinetic energy theory. You don't move in space with kinetic energy theory. Momentum works in space. All right. If you can make it go twice as fast, I will seriously start to doubt all of my experiments. Good. But until now, I'm pretty convinced of my results. So he's convinced of an experiment he left up now for a week where he can't figure out that a pendulum swinging this wide and one swinging this wide, you can't test their energy at a point here because this one has lost 90% of its energy and this one's only lost 50%. You can't figure out that that's garbage theory. All right. I love how you ignore my playlist of experiments. Hilarious statement. And analysis to DraftScience has no adequate responses. So bullshit. I've responded to their experiments over and over again. The whole thing is a tedious waste of time. I shouldn't have to do it. I pointed this so clearly out with the Dispar video. I gave them the opportunity. I didn't tell them this time. I didn't do the point out how we fucked up. Okay? I didn't bother doing it. I just pointed out you did fuck up. Let's see if you can find it. So I gave them 4 days to find it. They couldn't find it. Then I gave them plenty of time to acknowledge it, and they haven't done it. Not a single statement acknowledging the experiment's a pile of shit. I mean, it's so dishonest. Let's see. So he says, all you are is insert insult. He has made responses to all the videos in your playlist. The fact is you link to an experiment that hasn't been done by your cult mentor proves that the point draft makes. You don't understand that your science should have good evidence for KE before your cult members have to make experiments to defend something as a fact. And again, this is in light of the fact that this is a theory completely contradicting the core of Newton's theory, the second law. Newton's second law is not Leibniz's second law. Okay? They're not the same law. All right? Newton's law is not the law they cite. Okay? Kinetic energy is not consistent with Newton's second law. It's in fact a direct opposition. And these liars won't even account for that. All right. What is the response by URDS to Michael's comparing momentum models video? So I already pointed it out over and over again. He did 2 experiments. Same spring. One experiment produces 3,000 joules. The other experiment, the same compression, only produces 2,000. It's more like 3,000 and 1,500. Something like that. I'm claiming that obviously he's doing something wrong. Okay, I mean, I can't sit there and play with his little detectors, his velocity detector, and see if it's getting right numbers and do this and do that. He didn't test them in front of us. He didn't show them getting right answers. I'm saying something's wrong because that don't happen. Springs can't give you variable amounts of energy. All right, I'm waiting for this hard-hitting response that knocks me out of the park. So this is mindless again. I mean, obviously, the response can only be made to the fact that there is something in the experiment that shows a contradiction. And that's all that has to be exposed, frankly. Again, all I have to do is point to the fact that Professor Lewin's cart, his cart that's supposed to be half the mass, has way too many little parts on it to be half the mass. Because the other cart doesn't have blobs of clay. The other cart doesn't have the sufficient number of little attachments. The other cart doesn't have the mass required to be twice the mass. Okay, by all means do it. You've responded to me with 15 minutes of my post. Let's see if it takes us or whatever. You can copy my description of you as a cult member and throw that back at us. Let's see, like you copied my so now he's claiming he has, it's plagiarism for somebody else to call these people a cult because they've called us a cult first. Oh, please. This is so pathetic. All right, so conservation of momentum experiment. So this is Dispar posting links to a bunch of demonstrations. Okay, now I don't know if he has the link to the woman's, the high school teacher who did the experiment where she wasn't deliberately taking the results, but we could see the results. And that experiment came out my way. And then the one by Arbor Scientific, the company that sells the stupid thing, that one's also far from confirming your theory. So just keep playing the game. And that is just a game. We know all of these experiments are not nearly clinical enough to be accepted as evidence in a serious trial. Now, if you want to have a kangaroo court, then maybe this is good enough evidence. But a serious court, it shouldn't be evidence at all. These are all experiments not done by us. They all prove DS conservation of momentum wrong. So again, it's just bullshit that you can prove conservation of momentum wrong. But anyway, he has responded to a few of them, but has always called it a crap experiment. Even though time and time again they prove the opposite direction must have a negative sign in order for momentum. So again, he just keeps saying it. Yes, time and time again they do demonstration experiments that confirm what's in their textbook. And time again, we can see that Professor Lewin's cart has a blob of clay on it. So time and time again, there's good reason to be suspicious of the motives of the teachers. These aren't experimentalists. These aren't honest players looking for the truth. This isn't Faraday sitting in his lab doing the experiment. This is a teacher trying to confirm what's in the textbook. You ignore what I said is an important point, makes people a cult, so we don't need more of this cult stuff. When a one-mass cart collides with a two-mass cart elastically, why does the one-mass cart go 0.33 as fast back, and the two-mass cart go 0.666 as fast forward? DS says this is impossible. And I continue to say it's impossible. So if physicist Michael does the experiment we'll see if it's possible to make free momentum. I mean, that will be something. I mean, it doesn't prove kinetic energy, frankly. It just proves this idiotic notion that somehow when you hit heavy things, you can give them more momentum than when you hit light things. But again, isn't that part of your own theory? Isn't it against your own theory to say in one case, light things are hard to push, and yet in another case, light things carry more energy? But whatever, we'll see. The very first video in my playlist was one independently of DraftScience before I even talked about KE. This indicates that you haven't bothered to look at the playlist before responding. So that's hilarious. The very first in the playlist was done independent. What are you talking about? Yeah, it's a garbage video on the internet on the subject of kinetic energy. There's lots of garbage videos that give you the whole F equals MA. There's a ton of F equals MA videos. Do you think they're honest? Do you think Newton said that? Let's see. Moreover, Despard has posted links to momentum collision experiments being done independent. So he keeps saying independently of me. What does that mean? That doesn't mean anything. Professor Lewin's video was done 15 years before I brought this subject. 25 years? 20 years before I brought the subject up? So what? It doesn't change the blob of clay on the experiment. You are demonstrably wrong about people not having done these experiments. So again, the experiments we really want to see are the decisive ones. So do this decisive one. Do the car crash thing, for fuck's sake. Come on, show me the 100-mile-an-hour car crushed 4 times as much. What's the big deal? Come on, show me the 25 times the damage going 5 times as fast. Show me. I'm responding to your points because I want to advance the dialogue. There's no dialogue possible. You're saying it's all good enough evidence, and I'm pointing out the obvious, which is in 300 years they couldn't produce any of this evidence, and now all we have are these little rickety experiments. Instead of doing the big one, prove that twice the speed is 4 times the energy, or 3 times the speed is 9 times the energy. Instead of doing that experiment, you're doing this bullshit. I'm responding to your points. Okay, we already did all that. For the love of rationality, get your head out of Gary's ass. And Newton's ass, too. So let's just say, why don't you people be honest enough and say Newton's ass? All right, get your head out of Newton's ass and stop acting like a fanatical cheerleader for Newton. Yeah, because Newton was an idiot by your standards. And Leibniz was the guy who really knew the truth. The guy who believed inanimate objects have a soul. That's the guy who really knew the truth. God, you people are such scum. All you do is talk shit and avoid physics. So amazing statement by these assholes who haven't come close to making a physics argument. I put them in 5-minute fucking videos. They can't play the video. They can't counter argue it. They can't do it especially honestly. They can't come anywhere near to honestly representing my argument and proving how I said a single thing that is fucking correct. So mindless marbles, why don't you take the challenge and quote a sentence from one of those 5-minute videos where I said something that's factually incorrect. You fucking gutless, cowardly, slandering, lying sack of the smelliest goddamn shit on earth. All right, and then this Leska guy, what a moron. Okay, I did unblock him 3 weeks ago, but I'm going to go block him again because he just talks shit in the comments section. He pretends like he wants to play fair, and then he talks shit. All right, anyway, this is just so stupid. Anyone who has ever ridden a bicycle knows going from 0 to 10 meters per second is a lot easier than going from 10 to 20. So let's say that was 5 miles an hour. He's saying that people who have ridden bicycles, you would think it's harder to go the second 5 miles an hour than the first. So going from 0 to 5 is a lot easier than going from 5 to 10. Now, obviously, when you start going from 5 to 10 or 10 to 20, air resistance becomes a huge factor, gigantic. Okay, so obviously bicyclists are burdened, okay, by the fact that the air resistance is going to become quite noticeable and quite a drag. So again, just an absolute nonsense. My impression of bicycling, okay, it's certainly not my impression. And I used to actually ride a bicycle with newspapers, carrying 40 pounds of newspapers, which probably shouldn't be the case if it was the same energy. So again, what bullshit. It's not the case. You're just making this up out of your own silly brain. I don't feel the difference, okay? I don't sense any notion that that second 5 miles an hour was terribly hard to acquire. Let's see. I made a video that deals with another thing that nobody ever talks about. K loss when a 5-ton train turns into a 10-ton train, among other things. And where did your video say anything? Where did you demonstrate anything? Where did you associate it to an experiment somewhere? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. You just made up some notion that somehow the energy magically disappears. Yeah, it just magically disappears. The momentum just poofs away. Poof, it's gone. I was hoping DS to see the comment, but he may have already made a response video, so I guess I was too late. It would be nice if he allowed people to comment on his videos. No, you were unblocked for the last 2 weeks, but fuck you. You're just such a fucking little cunt. I mean, just such a jackass. Now, they did change this whole system, which is really irritating. You can't just go to an about page anymore. Ugh, it was so much easier. There, fuck you. Piece of turd. Alright, Newton's springs and momentum. So what's this one? Yeah, I haven't seen this moronic video yet. 5 months ago. Oh, I guess I did see it 5 months ago. Oh, hilarious. So this is FD versus FT. Fuck you. So there's no way this is going to have anything to do with reality. Yeah, I mean, it's a time-dependent force. It's just ridiculous. So is this my argument? Does this look anything like my argument? No. So let's see. Let's play it. What the fuck? We're here.
Okay, this one will be mostly about physical work and whether time or...
You're just such a little putsy lying sack of shit. Fucking little weaselly lying cunt bastard.
Distance is the important one.
So this isn't anything to do. 5-minute videos, they can't deal with the actual argument. So I drew a planet, and I said you're going by it at a speed. Poof. I did another example where you're going in with a speed. Poof. Nothing. He won't respond to the actual argument.
So if we are holding a weight up in there like this, not lifting it, just holding it, we are using energy and we will get tired eventually. So that's why you're...
Yeah, so it's obviously work. And so physics says it's no work, okay? You're not doing any work. You're not imposing any force. You're not doing anything. When clearly you are doing something. You're providing the energy to fight the gravity.
Saying that work is about time and not about distance. But obviously we are not changing the energy status of this weight in any way. The weight is not gaining energy in any form.
It's sitting there being constantly getting a new version of gravity every second. Every second it's 9.8 meters of force downward. Every fucking second you're holding it.
So where is
the actual speed is 1 mile an hour for, to be realistic. So at 1 mile an hour, the 100 pounds at 1 mile an hour weighs 100 pounds of momentum. It's 100 pounds of momentum against you.
The energy going into? Well, the fact is that inside your muscles, you have these gradients of charged particles. And
oh, this is just too stupid. Let's jump ahead. I mean, duh. We already know that your muscles are doing a bunch of work. So fuck you. What's the point? You're doing work.
But that's just a biological feature. So another way we might lift the weight up would be this kind of thermodynamic lift. So this is a cylinder, a piston, and then some gas inside. And if we then inject some heat energy into the gas expands and lifts this weight up.
And vice versa. You can make the gas hotter by compressing it. So what are you proving here? Newton would say these things will be equal.
And it doesn't matter how slowly we want to lift the weight up. The same amount of energy input will always lead to the same amount.
It's bullshit. That's an exact lie crap. You just made that fucking shit up. You can make it go up very fast. You can make it up going very slow. And the fact is, it will be a different amount of energy you will consume to do that. You lift it up very slowly, you're going to have to put more heat in. Fact. So you're just absolutely wrong.
Of lift. So time is completely irrelevant here.
No, you're wrong. Okay, so you didn't prove it. You didn't show any experiment. You didn't show anything to indicate that is true. That doesn't matter how much heat I put in and how quickly I raise that. Okay, so if I put 1,000 degrees in or I put 500 over a slower amount of time, and it will make a difference. And you're pretending you have already done that experiment and you proved otherwise. Well, you haven't done the experiment, you didn't prove otherwise. I'm claiming that's an absolute pile of shit. It always matters how fast you lift a weight. Always matters. It's always more work, you do it slower. It's always less work per foot, you do it faster. The faster you do it, the less work you do per foot. Always.
It's all about distance.
So made up argument, completely made up out of nothing. Zero evidence demonstrating that anything he just said was true.
Then how about objects falling in gravity? So you're saying that the kinetic energy doesn't really work in gravity if the objects have different initial velocities.
It's just an absolute fact. So again, I don't know how the fuck you're going to make any other argument, you fucking retard. It's an absolute fact. The faster you get through the gravity, the less fucking gravity will affect you. It's an absolute fact. NASA knows it and I know it. Newton knew it.
But if you actually calculated the changes in kinetic energies, you would find out that the changes are the same for these objects.
It's retarded. So I'm sorry. Calculate what? Calculate a fake answer. So you're going to calculate a wrong answer. You're going to tell me this does collect more energy than it absolutely does. So again, you're just saying you're saying MGH is right, and you're proving it by just making up a fake number and saying that's what it does. When no, the whole contention is that you'll get the wrong answer. Your answer will be, in fact, completely wrong. Oh, God, what a cunt.
And that it only depends on the distance. Surprising fact, perhaps, because quadratic functions are a bit difficult, but a fact nonetheless.
It's no fact. You're not talking any fact at all. You don't have any experimental evidence to defend what you just said. It's absolute shit. I mean, you could prove it over and over again just by watching things fall and see how much energy they've collected. The hammer versus the feather, they fall the same time. Why does the hammer go boom and the feather not go boom? It's because, yes, they collected a completely different amount of energy based on their mass. Their mass is what made the difference because the time is the same. I mean, god damn, what an asshole.
So gravity is a time-dependent force only in terms of momentum.
Liar, 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 liar.
If you fall twice as long, you will gain twice the momentum. But again, momentum is...
Yeah, momentum. So what is your argument? So if you fall twice as long, you will gain twice the momentum. He's conceding. The kinetic energy is made out of momentum, retard. It's 1/2 momentum, with the v squared. But it's the same fucking two things, mass and velocity, you dumbass. If you're conceding it's only twice the velocity, all right, then you're just making up the fact that it's extra energy. That doesn't change the fact that it is perfectly correct that one of these objects are going to fall the same distance and they're going to collect a different amount of energy. Oh, shit.
It's not energy as quite strongly suggested by the experiments done by other people.
So babble, babble,
And finally,
no evidence.
Something about merging two objects, let's say two 5-ton trains together. So here's our stationary train.
So he's going to make up some lie about where the magical momentum disappears. And every physicist always says deformation, heat. These are always the excuses they use. And all of those things, deformation, heat, those things require you to use something's momentum to produce them. So you can't conserve 100% of the momentum and then lose half the kinetic energy and then claim that you used the momentum twice. I heated and deformed things and then I used the momentum again.
With the spring this time, and this is our moving train. So this one hits the spring.
They're not combining in this case, retard. So what does this have to do with the experiment? Oh, that's right, nothing.
And obviously starts to slow down because there's some mass in the way. And the spring is applying a force against this object. That's why it's slowing down. But according to Newton, the spring is applying the same amount of force to this object, meaning that any amount of momentum this object loses, this object will gain the same amount of momentum.
Well, speed and momentum are related to mass. So yes, if they're equally massed, then you're just going to exchange all of the momentum from one object into the other object. But the trick is when the masses are different, then the conversion of one thing's the pressure and time matters. You need more time when something's heavier. It needs more time to absorb the energy.
So this one will be slowing down and this one will be gaining velocity. But because this object had higher initial velocity, even if it loses some, it will still have higher velocity. So it will keep compressing the spring until these two objects have the same velocity, which will be 1/2 of the initial velocity.
So he has no experiment defending this either.
And if we then lock the spring in place, don't let it decompress, these objects will be traveling as a 1 10-ton train with half of the initial velocity, meaning that momentum was conserved, but half of the kinetic energy was lost. But now it's a bit more obvious what happened to the kinetic energy.
How is it at all obvious?
So the point is that you can change the kinetic energy of a system without changing the momentum.
Again, you'll have the same momentum. So you're making my point for me that you just release the spring, and what's going to happen when you do that? This is going to gain all of its energy back. This will stop moving. So this will remain still, and this will be going off at the faster speed, the higher momentum. I mean, this is throwing a basketball off the back of a truck. You know, these are all experiments that have been done. They're all controlled by momentum. There's no sign of kinetic energy being conserved in those experiments.
If you are, for example, compressing springs or generating heat or something like that. So that was it. Bye.
Well, it was garbage. There was no citation to any evidence that it happens that way. So there's not much else to say except bullshit. Yeah. All right. You know, this idea of compressing a spring, I mean, I kind of talked about that in terms of the truck idea, that you could put a weight onto a truck and have a spring compress as you're collecting, you know, giving the extra weight its momentum, and then lock the spring and just turn it and then shoot the weight off and get all your energy back, all your momentum back in one object again. So, hardly a decisive argument for your side. You're just basically proving the kinetic energy isn't conserved and the momentum is. So, fine. Thank you. Yeah. All right. So, enough said and such. So, we'll call that a video. And, yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do with these. No, really, we've been over this so many times, right? They don't want to hear the criticisms of their experiments. Then they complain and rag that you're nitpicking, you're doing this, you're doing that. So I've given you two perfect illustrations. The Falwell guy did an experiment, complete shit. His own people told him he did the measurements wrong. He didn't care. All right, then I showed you Despar. He's had a whole week. He hasn't acknowledged the mistake. He didn't look for the mistake. He won't even anything. And again, not acknowledged at all. He's just not going to even acknowledge that the experiment is garbage. Completely flawed. The logic behind the experiment is crap. All right, it won't work. It can't work the way he's trying to do it. You can't do what you're trying to show the way he's trying to show it. It's a fake, phony, fraud experiment. And he hasn't done anything to retract it. All right. That's the definition of dishonest, frankly. These are poster child for dishonest, shitty people.